So thanks to everybody for coming, and I know we wish Leonardo's wife the best, and Chuck too, in getting recovered from surgery. These things happen. So we do have a couple of things on a brief agenda. We've got the February minutes that Lauren sent out. We were just talking about briefly. And if we could take a look, and I assume it's the January 15th minutes. I'm sorry. Correct. That's Lauren. That's the one we're looking at, right?
Correct.
Okay, January 15th. So, can I get a motion to approve those minutes? It's either Miles or Mike is gonna move or second.
Well, the question is, I don't think I'm at the meeting, but I read the minutes, so I don't know.
I didn't read the minutes, to be honest with you, so.
All right, Gina and
I'll
Ray.
move. I'll move it.
Second,
All right, great. Then if moved and seconded, if
If I read it, can I vote for it even if I didn't attend the meeting, or you have to be there at the meeting?
I'm good with that. Lauren, do you worry? You're the boss of us in many ways.
I would say abstain, but
Okay, I'll abstain. I don't care.
Okay, all in favor? The three of us and Miles and Mike are abstaining, right?
Yep.
Nevertheless, the January 15th minutes are approved. And as Lauren said, the February, he's working on, we had 2 meetings in February and he's working on those. And these are pretty detailed and complex minutes. So we really, really appreciate, Lauren, all the work to really find a great balance between the details and not getting buried in the details. So thank you so very much. The next item that Leonardo had sort of put on his list was the resolution that Leslie Debo and I crafted about federal cuts to HUD, to housing programs. And that got sent out. I think that got sent to you last night. Hope it was sent last night. Is that, did everybody have a chance to see that?
I didn't see it. I've been going, just trying to make some deadlines, and I thought I made it last night after 4 days. And then today I had a bunch of meetings and things, so no, I haven't looked at any of them.
I read it.
I glanced over my emails, but nothing, I didn't dwell on that one.
Okay. I have it. Let me see. I'm gonna close that.
If you can put it on the screen.
Right. Gina or Ray, do you have it handy?
I can find it.
I've got it. Let me see if I can share. Come on. Is it there? All right. I've got it. Let me.
I might need to allow you to share. Let's see.
All right. It says it's not turned on. I've just sent a request to share.
You're co-host, so you can share now.
Okay. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is sort of in the format of things that we would often do at the county, where you sort of state some basic facts. I mean, if everybody wants to take a minute and read it, I don't, we have time, I'm sure. I'll scroll down in a few minutes.
The homeless in our county's gone up 64%.
Yep.
So how many people does that involve at this point?
I had the numbers. It's like 600. It went from 400 something to 600 something.
Okay, thank you.
I can find that after we
No,
finish.
it's just a ballpark. I'm not trying to get to the details. I just wondered if it was 10 to 25 and big jump, or it was big numbers like what we gave.
Yeah, it's big numbers. And the issue is, when in every January, there's something called the point in time count that's mandated by the federal government, that you go out and count everybody in your community. That includes people looking under bridges and people, you know, nonprofit folks and volunteers do this. They go out and count people. They count anybody who's living in a shelter or couch surfing. They try to really do a good job of recognizing everybody who's not in their own stable, their own housing unit or a shared unit for real. And so it's not just a made up number, it's, you know, it's a process of actually counting people. So here's the end of that. Did everybody get all of that?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, see if I have the numbers. Yeah, I'd have to go through some emails to find the other numbers, so,
No, this is close enough.
all right. So if that's okay, can, any discussion on that? Any questions? And these are discussing not anything that's been done to the staff at Housing and Urban Development, which I believe there's been a lot of uproar and people being fired there. This is about actual budget cuts that are proposed. So can I get a motion on that resolution?
I'll make the motion. We
Thanks,
go
Mike.
with this.
Now, I'll second it.
Thank you, Miles. And I don't know if there's, I mean, we used to pass these things at the county all the time, and one thing that lets that happen is it educates people, anybody who's listening to that meeting where it's discussed, and then we can, and the town board can send it on to the New York Association of Towns, for example, or to the county and other municipalities. And then you try to generate some pushback. So any other discussion of this? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great, that's unanimous.
Martha, I'm just
Yep.
the way I'm gonna frame it, because it's, the resolution is, or the resolved is that the town of Dryden's town board strongly opposes. I'm gonna frame it such that you encourage the town board to pass this resolution.
That's
Okay,
better. That's much better. Thanks, Lauren.
but I'll keep that entire text, so.
Okay. Perfect. That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see, other things that, okay, Leonardo just then wrote other, so, I had, a couple of questions to Mike Murphy as others, and then there's, before Miles and Mike, before you got on, we talked about the zoning board and, the planning board, I'm sorry, and their group that is working on the zoning rewrite. Ray, did you say there's a steering committee for the zoning rewrite?
Yeah, that's probably the most accurate, because the planning board was charged with guiding this zoning rewrite, and it would bring it back to the board, the town board, for adoption as a local law amendment. And now the planning board has opened it up to participation from other boards and committees.
Okay, and so then they're forming this steering committee that is gonna include these other folks, like they asked us for liaison. And you
Mhm.
said the zoning board has appointed somebody over email. Gina, you said you were gonna go to that meeting tomorrow representing the planning department and report back. I had asked Tony Salerno, he's chair of the planning board, I'd asked him, what's the time commitment? And still haven't heard back.
He actually just responded, there's an email in your inbox.
Okay. You can't do three things at once. All right, Gina, you were trying to say something, but you're muted.
Saying the same thing as Ray.
Okay, what did he say? There it is. Okay. Sorry for the delayed response. Time commitment. All right, so everybody's got this, I see. We'll be having monthly meetings related to the zoning rewrite. Currently, the plan for the first Thursdays at 6 o'clock in Town Hall. We will have Zoom running. Blah, 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 blah. Generally, meetings will be about an hour and a half. those that are representing a committee would likely be asked to bring specific items forward or back to the committee. We'll put out an agenda each month. If the topics do not relate to a specific committee, the representative could skip if they so desired. I guess so, for example, if they're talking about, okay. All right. The document we'll be reviewing and finalizing at tomorrow's meeting is just the scope document we plan to send to the town board for approval. It's really about scope, timeline, and cost, not specifics of Nan's report. And he's attached the draft. Okay, that is very helpful, at least for tomorrow, for tomorrow's meeting. So he doesn't answer like how many months. I mean, it's like, oh, and let me ask, maybe Gina, maybe you have a sense. So there are a few things on the planning board agenda that's on the website. So the zoning, the issue of the scope for the zoning rewrite is the first item, and then there are a few other items. Is that the intention? Like there would sort of be other business as well in each of these monthly meetings, or are these special meetings just about the zoning rewrite?
Yeah,
So-
these are a second meeting every month that's being set up by the planning board. So it's akin to the process that we did for the Dryden 2045, the comp plan update. So we have still the regular meeting is the fourth Thursday of every month. All the project reviews and other business will take place there. This first Thursday of every month will be a special meeting focused on the zoning law rewrite.
Okay.
Some months will be pretty light, some months will be pretty in-depth.
Can I?
And as he said, he's going to put the agenda out. So those meetings dealing with primarily housing, those would be the ones that are of import to this committee.
I'm just gonna add that, the battery energy storage and, the AI crypto mining are issues for zoning. So those are going to be considered in the new zoning. And I think they were put there, Ray, correct me if I'm wrong. I think they were put there in case determining the scope just took a few minutes. While everybody was gathered there, they would move on to the next item. So.
Yeah, I would expect the battery and the crypto to be the primary object of the meeting.
And I think that's not something we would be concerned about. I don't think we have any special expertise to add to that discussion, right?
Right.
Okay.
It's very much important to the housing issue because the main argument against the data centers and crypto mining is that they would draw so much energy off the grid that it would compete against housing interests.
Mhm.
But that's the tangential arrangement.
Okay.
I believe I got one right in my village.
You have a data center? What?
Yep.
The house with no snow on the roof. It's easy to pick it.
Where's that?
It's the old honey butter factory.
No,
We don't know what's in there, to be honest with you. The guy is very, he's very secretive and he won't let even the, code enforcement in. Yeah. Or the fire department. The power lines got so hot once they snapped.
How can he not let y'all in?
Well, the fire department went over there and they actually forced their way in.
I
Against
would
him,
think.
and basically he was gonna call the lawyers on us and we told him, the fire department has every right to be here. When you got lines that are actually popping on the street because you're drawing so much power that,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. That's
And
not,
it kind of supports what Ray just said, about the power draw is just incredible.
so is the town's goal for this to outlaw data centers in the town, or what's the idea? Does any of you know?
I think the current debate is to put certain limits on that to make sure that it's not a large facility.
Mhm. Okay.
what do you confirm is the largest?
Right now, 5,000 square foot has been the number that's bandied about, but this is yet to be drafted into actual language, and then it would be ultimately the town board decision.
5,000 is a pretty good sized building.
Hmm.
But maybe we have to be reasonable when we restrict things.
All right, is it agreed that that's maybe not a housing, directly a housing issue if we don't really have expertise on this? Okay, all right, then Gina, thank you for offering to go, or you said you're gonna go anyway. Thank you for going and offering to report back to us. Leonardo and Chuck had asked that I consider being the rep to this group. I know it's a chunk of time and that's why I'm hesitating, so, but you know, Miles or Mike, I'm guessing you probably don't feel you'd have time to do it. Is this,
No, unfortunately. At some point I might sit in on it just to see how it's going, but no, I don't have the time.
Miles, is it something you'd be interested in?
I'm not sure. To be honest with you.
Okay. All right, well, let's,
Maybe when
I
they,
got a lot on my platter, to be honest with you, and that's why I'm very reluctant to jump into anything.
maybe if anything is on the agenda that you think might be relevant to one of the villages.
all right, well, I'll give it some more thought and, maybe Gina, we can talk afterwards. So,
So Martha, to make it more palatable, since Gina and I will probably be tag teaming on these meetings, we'll always be involved somehow. And we can keep an eye out for those key issues that are coming up that would be helpful to have your expertise at the table.
okay, that's very helpful. Okay, that's good. Maybe I'll sign on as a sort of occasional partner. Okay, all right.
Now, I say that and we probably will give you about 1 week advance notice, but hopefully a little more.
Okay, all right, no, that's good. All right. That's very helpful, thank you. Okay. All right, I had some other questions that I hope we could talk about, and I did get a chance to call Mike, and Mike had a chance to help me on the phone this morning about the New York Forward grant. Yay! $4.5 million. That's spectacular. Congratulations, Mike. What a wonderful accomplishment. So, and you were telling me as you had to walk out the door that there's a process for moving this forward, and the state has, tell us all how the state moves this forward.
I guess you don't need to see me, but I clicked something and now I can't get back to seeing you guys, but you can hear me, so that's the important thing.
Well, we can see you too.
Oh, well, I can't see you guys.
Okay.
I got big Zoom and I played with, usually I can get back to it by hitting something, but didn't go. So anyway, the way it works is somebody's going to contact, the lady going to contact me or one of the representatives and this week, and they haven't yet. And we'll talk about the future. And what normally happens is it takes a couple months before we start getting to go. And usually at that point, when we have met the person who's going to be, okay, I should start this way. We won the grant, okay? But anything that we put in it is not in it anymore. We start from scratch one. And we will have a state representative that will be with us. And they will be involved in hiring a consultant. And there will be a consultant company that will come in and run the meetings and help us set up the committee. So in about 2 months, we've already talked to them and done some behind stuff, but they will hold an open meeting to get people to come in and talk about the plan and how it works and everything else. And so basically one of the things they're going to talk about is that you're going to have a committee and we will make recommendations to people, and the consultant or Albany will say, yep. No, we don't need 3 lawyers. No, okay. 2 teachers, maybe okay. But they'll look at the background of the type of people and they won't know how great they are or not, but they'll just say, hey, we want to balance it. So that's one of the things they will do. So once they help us with that, that committee, whether it be 15 or 20 people, or there's no specific limit, it could go down to 10, are people who are involved in hearing the projects. So we start by organizing the committee. The committee makes decisions once it's organized in regards to the funds. And my understanding is you have X dollars that you can use. And we have a choice, and that the percentage that we match, and we could maybe have in 2 different categories for matching, but the minimum that anybody's ever done is 40%. But some of the small communities, because they don't have a lot of money, they have gone to a higher match. So they gone up to 50 or 60% match. When they do that, that money goes not as far, but there is some flexibility. I mean, I'm sure we can't go to 80% or something like that, but the state is giving some flexibility depending on the community. And so that one of the things the committee will decide is what the matching will be. Now, the reason I said there might be 2 categories, there might be just the general one wherever it comes in. And typically what they do is they set up one grant, sub-grant between it for like 300,000. And then those people have a very high matching. It's like, I need a furnace or something else for my house, or my business refrigeration system is gone. And they oftentimes will give a bigger match for that than the house on Main Street. I shouldn't say the house, but the building on West Main Street that's going to cost $1.5 million. They're not going to come back and say, oh yeah, we'll give you 70%, but they'll maybe 40 or 50, what everybody gets. But some of the small things the committee will have, and they will have a bigger flexibility. But the main money, that will be like 300,000 out of 4.5. So the main one, they make a decision within realm that the state will let us do. So then after that, we would then have a meeting at some point where we go out and say, okay, here's what we look. These are the application forms, what we want, what we do, and what type of things you can apply for. And then they will help the consultant, anybody that's trying to figure out exactly how to do it or how the right. They won't go out and do the consulting where you go and say, hey, I need a construction guy. You come in and give me an idea. No, they don't do that, but they give you an idea how to do different things. And so therefore, they will say, they'll give us in middle of July or August, at the latest, they'll open up sending in your applications. So people will send in their applications, and if you get it, if it opens in July 1st, it doesn't matter if you get it July 1st or you give it August 1st, as long as it's in the period where they'll accept the applications. Because we review them, and it's nicer to have them and not be a crunch. But say when we're all closed it, we'll have another month or 2 to review them, or 3. And then December, we will have gone through the applications, ones we're interested in, ones where we think their application should be stronger, and gone back and work with them. But in that point in time, we will have a group that committee approves of submitting to Albany. Now, you never submit 4.5, you submit a bigger one, whether it's 6, 7 million, because the state then sends it to the DOT department or to the housing department or anybody else that it applies to, or Empire, and say, what do you think? Does it make sense? Is it good? What's going on? And then maybe we send it in, say, by end of December, maybe March, April, they'll come back and say, you gave us 30 projects and 28 of them approve. And I've never heard it, but I imagine they, even on some of the ones that get approved, to say, a little less. You estimated 2 million and you wanted 40% of that. You could knock these things off and go for a 1.5, and we give you the matching one or something. That's not clear, but basically they have the final decision, because I know in Homer, they had a nice thing for along the creek to make it very attractive and functional, and maybe where they could have activities on there. And it was a chunk of money, and state said no. So the difference is this: any of the project money, grant money, going to individuals or businesses are separate. They have to be reviewed, they have to be approved locally, they have to be approved in the state. And then they come back and match, say, well, I'm going to match yours with 50% up to such a dollar, or whatever we end up with. Then you can go out and get your bids and everything else and start doing it. But the catch is, say you wanted $1 million and they're going to match 500,000. You have to take a bridge loan for the whole amount. You have to pay the whole thing. And when you get it done and they finally approve that it does what you said and it's all done and it's got the occupancy and everything else, then we'll give you your 500,000 with the matching money. So one of the things is that it's, you got to carry it for the length of time, however long it takes. And they're not going to pay the interest, so that you know, somebody asked me that already. No, they promised you the money, but not the grant, the bridge money for interest. So basically the way it goes is that this committee reviews it and talks to the person, people make the presentation, and then they get back and say, okay, here's 30 that we look good, and that they're going to bring us up to $900,000. Well, that's not realistic. A lot of them are going to be turned down, and we should maybe make some of the decisions that are weak. So if somebody gives you a week and it's just a dream saying, you know, I'd really like to do this, and I think we could maybe do it for 300,000. Well, that's one of the ones that we suggested to them along the way. You got to give us some data, some bids or contract, you know, what it costs from contractors or whatever you're doing. And if they don't do it, then we're not going to send that on. We maybe talk to them and said, hey, you know, still doesn't come up with real data. We'd cancel that one out. That we had 900,000, we'd knock that 50,000 one out of the click and go through. So you don't want to send down a whole bunch of them that aren't realistic or practical, that they can be done, they can be financed.
Does the consultants, do the consultants fees come out of the 4.5 million?
No, what it is that the DRI was $10 million. The New York Forward is either 2 of the 4.5s or 4.5 and 2 of the 2.25s. And they realized that the cities that were getting the grants had staffs that could do a lot of the stuff. So what they did was, instead of giving us $10 million, 5 and 5 and or whatever it is, they give us 4.5 because there's $1 million of consultant that the state is paying for. That's why they bring in a consultant. And they, so our village uses up 550,000 of them and the other one uses up 450,000 consult. I don't know. Basically,
Okay, so in other words, you
coming
don't
out
have,
of our pocket.
it's sort of taken out ahead of time. So,
Right.
okay. So does the steering committee, I mean, that's, by the way, that's a really long timeline before, you know, and because if somebody puts together cost estimates for a project in, you know, July 2025 and don't get approval till March 2026, the cost.
That's the way they do it. So, you know, the price will not be accurate, but at least you would maybe put a little contingency in, because
Right.
6% for
village-
inflation or something. I you know,
Can the village apply? So the village, like if the village says we need, you know, to do this, we need, you mentioned Homer fixing up their creek. I mean, if the village said,
well, we have a bunch of things we'll submit. Basically, what I'm talking about is if the village approves it and it goes to Albany and they approve any program that we suggested we want to do for the public or for the village, we get 100% matching. However, that means it usually is scrutinize that it's really going to do a benefit to the community and really going to help raise our tax basis, as opposed to just, it'd be pretty if we did this. So, I mean, some of the stuff is pretty that, you put in new flower gardens or something, and they'll approve of that because it's so much money, and that makes it more like to drive through or live there. But they do look at anything that we put in, and I gave the example of Homer was the fact that you could put something in and they could say no. And just like you could pick a project that you want to do and they don't see it as realistic or something else, the state could say no. And so we don't have a rebut saying, oh, you should have said yes. They have the right to say no. And
Okay,
so,
but-
I-
So if
they make a
they-
good application that really justifies it, whether
Since
it be.
this is a pro-housing, a lot of this is about pro-housing. Could the village put in for some of the infrastructure work that you need done to support more housing?
It would be very technically one. Basically, they're more interested that we could maybe get some along that line, but more likely they'd want to take the bad buildings on West Main Street and subsidize those, making them into rental property that's more viable than to put in $100,000 of water lines for someplace. I'm not saying they wouldn't consider it, but that's not the goal. That was one of the first things we put in the grant was we wanted this and we wanted that. And, and after we failed, our representative that has been very helpful, Heather McDaniels, came back and said, these guys are looking for how you're going to raise tax base so that the villages and cities can pay for themselves and can grow and bring people in. And they do, yes, they support programs that you want to spend the money on public things, but they're kind of want to see that it's really going to do something to either grow the place or something else, not that it's just kind of pretty, unless that.
Yeah, right. But
really-
as you know all too well, water and sewer expansion helps you grow. the
Yeah,
house.
and they'll say, go after the humanity.
Okay, okay, so this is meant to be,
They're not gonna give big money on that. No, you're not gonna get any money. You're not gonna come along and say, oh, we'll give you $500,000 to hook up the water to Ezra or to Paul Simonette's area, or, put piping system in for them or anything else.
okay,
No, that's not the goal of this one. It's,
all right. Do
We're
members of
building-
the steering?
they
committee
might
have-
even give money to build a building to do something. But,
Okay.
the community.
Do members of the steering committee have to be village residents?
That's something I got to find out, because some of the people who have invested in the community own businesses here or other things. So I would, in my gut reaction, I would not restrict it to just villagers, but I wouldn't open it up to somebody living in Ithaca that has no interest in, doesn't have property here, or doesn't have some other connection. But I haven't heard the details on that, and I haven't had the first contact from them. But that was one of my questions, because I want to make sure I have a really functional, good group. It's the spending community. I want
Okay,
people
so it might be somebody who owns a business or maybe.
Yeah, I'm
somebody-
hoping that they'll allow those people to be on it too, even if they don't live in the village, because the
Well-
village is not very big.
Right, or maybe somebody representing the library or the historical society or something like that.
yeah.
Okay.
No, they haven't gone into details of that,
Mhm.
except I do know that we come up with the names and they can at times say, no, you got too many of that, or, hey, you don't have a union representative. We want to cover labor in it. So I heard that, some places they've said that if you didn't have one, whether, so I don't know the details of it. All I know is I'm looking for people that are good people that I think would be functional, that would come to the meeting, would be incisive, and, but
Are you at a point where you,
I don't know the thing, and I don't make the final. I'm somewhat involved with the coordinator selecting it, but I don't control it. And the only person that can go from the government is myself as the mayor. And my understanding is I'm there talking, but I don't know that I have a vote.
Mhm.
I do know I'm there, I'm
Are
a,
you in a position where you can sort of advertise that this committee's being formed?
oh
and
yeah, I will do that. You know,
people should-
we'll do that and we'll organize, we'll get out what we're looking for. Like, we'd like to do something to make our parking lot more attractive, more green.
No, no, wait.
There are
The
other
first-
places where we'd like to, by the trail, make it stand out so
okay,
people.
I'm not talking about projects. The first step is forming the committee. Are you prepared? Is it okay timing for you to put something out that says anybody interested in being on this steering committee should contact you? Is that something you can do?
That's something I would probably do after I talk to the representatives, talk to me. Yes, I will do that ahead of time. I will not wait 2 months to do that. But we just
Okay.
did it last week and they said they would contact us. And then that's one of my questions. Who can we get? How can we do it? How soon should we do it?
Got
As far as I'm concerned, as soon as possible. I've already selected some names of people that I think would be great, that put my name in the thing, whether I get picked or not.
Right. Yeah,
And
okay.
two things. One is to get that committee, and then there's also, you know, it's going to be the spending committee that's going to make the decision. And I'd like to get some people looking at some of the public things that, not the mayor saying we should do this on Times Square or we should do it on the other. There are other people involved. Could you? I'm going to need to catch this. It could be the person that's calling me, so I'll be just a
Okay.
second.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Hello. Hello. I'm sorry, who was it? No, thank you, I'm sorry. Okay,
One of those.
it's the person that's gonna be contacting us from Buffalo and I didn't want to not try to see if it was that person.
Right, that was probably somebody who wants to sell you a new social security plan or something.
Oh,
like-
yeah, I get that all the time. That's what it was.
Or Medicare Advantage. Okay. All right, well, maybe Mike, you and I were going back and forth about the press release announcing this
Yeah,
grant. Maybe we can add something about if anybody's interested in being on the steering committee, contact Mayor Murphy, blah, 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 something like that.
yeah, no, I do want to get it out and it'd be nice to get it out in the newspaper when we do that. So that's a good thought.
Anybody, any other questions about New York Forward for Mike?
Mike, would
Do
you
you-
have an application package you could mail out to the housing committee, just so we can look at the general framework of that grant?
We haven't established it yet. So once I do, I'd be glad to.
No, the application that you sent into the state.
Oh. Yeah, it's a 20-page thing and I can send it electronically to you. It
Yep,
talks
that'd be great.
about.
Thanks.
Yeah, that'd be great. I was gonna ask, thanks, Ray. I was gonna ask about
Okay, yeah.
that. So in other words, the state looks at your application and they're not saying, oh, great, we like, we're gonna give you money to do this, this, and this. They see that just as kind of a starting point, as your vision. And that's what they evaluated, but then it's only to kickstart a whole new process. In other words, they didn't,
It was a sales job. Are these people, have they had a history of doing things, growing, getting things done, getting water, sewer, doing this, getting houses or getting other things, or what are they active? How active are they? Are we going to get results from our money? We're going to give $4.5 million. We want to get 5, 8 million, 10 million, $12 million worth of private money matching up with the 4.5. And are they a place that they can do it? Are they likely to do it? And they don't want a place where it's, you don't have to be doing great, but they don't want to have one that's just going downhill. It's not to save them, it's to move people that are making progress forward, a big kick in to really grow it quick and draw the action. And
Yeah.
that's how we won, because, we're doing things.
all right, yeah, it'd be great to see the application and thank you so much for explaining all that. It's very interesting to know what the process is and
It's exciting, it could change, but that's pretty much what I've got secondhand from people.
all right, well, that's
Mhm.
really, that's a
And when I
very,
do know, I'll be glad to share it, because I'm not opposed to you guys saying, hey, did you think of this? So,
Okay, all right, thank you very much. And then you and I talked this morning about Ezra Village. And just if you want to give people a thumbnail, just a quick update on where that stands.
okay, basically, they probably would have, I don't know, it's 3 years, 4 years we've been working with, but at least 3 years. The first year out, yeah, they would like to have started, but it wouldn't crimp their style. But by the second year, now we're in the third year, or starting on, they're ready to build. They were not opposed to putting on a second crew to do the work. But they have done their process every year. They build 48 to 72 people, so they have their own little construction company, and they do it. And they're going to come, I think, at the end of this year, if not next year, but I think it might even be the end of this year, they will be done building at the other location. So they are eager to go forward, because once you disband it, it takes longer to bring back all the people, the carpenters, the plumbers, and everybody else that, since 2012 or something, where they started building it. Every year they added 48 to 72. Some people come and go, but they kept the construction crew going. And
You're talking now about Village Solars, right?
yeah,
Right.
and
Okay.
they're getting close to the top, and I can't remember. It's in the 540s or 580s that they'll be topped out. And they started 2012, they started talking about it. In 2014, I think they broke ground, and they've been building ever since. And
Okay. And what about the
they'd like to
Village of
come
Zion?
here, and they have been very slow in getting us some of the details, and know that they're eager to go is because now they started giving us really specific. They also had to go from having just one, what do you call it? Architect, or however you want to call the person that's organizing it and trying to justify and where the water, sewer, and buildings and what they are. Now they've come up with the data and showed what they want to do and where they want to hook onto us, which last year we didn't have. But I wouldn't do it either, because the fact that we weren't ready to move, and so they didn't want to tie up the money on all the work for that. If it's going to sit for 2 years, they'd just be, sitting on the money, and they'd rather spend the money and then take action. So they're pushing for action then. And, now the next question is, why aren't they? Well, they're not, because the health department is saying, no, you are, and so does the DEC. You have a level of 600,000 gallons of sewer treatment per day on the average. And that, you go over that, then we don't like you. Now, they haven't done anything to us, but they don't like it. So what happens is they say, we're not going to let you build 50 houses or 10 houses, or, a new, and we've got a couple houses here and there, but they're not going to make a big dent in it. And so that is the biggest thing. The other thing was water, and they are a former farm, and we didn't have water lines going to them up there, so they just don't have to go 100 feet. So there's substantial water line connection. And one of the things is that we wanted 2 ways to bring water into it. We didn't want to have a bunch of dead ends. We wanted to have 2 really separate sources of water coming there, because at 1,500 people, we are now 2,000. So if 1,500 people lose their water, that's a problem. Because if we had it hooked up just one way and that one system went down, usually it's not down forever, but who knows what happens? Could be a flood and take it out. And so the health department says, we want 2 major sources of water. And so we maybe could get away with starting out with just one while we don't have as many things. But typically when you go for state, they want to know, can you fulfill the obligation when it's completely built? And yes, we have the water, but no, we don't have the water there. And so that's one of the things to be done. But the biggest problem back is the I&I. And because, as I said, we're limited to 600,000, they don't like to go over it. But basically, we'll be pumping between 200,000, 250,000, depending on the day and the week and all, and sometimes the year. And there'll be a few times we go real high when we're flushing fire hydrants. But say we're 250,000. When we are running low, it's around 450,000 to 500,000. So pick the 500,000. That means we have 250,000 gallons per day for 30 days or whatever the length of the month is, treating water that doesn't need to be treated. And then the problem is you look at the fact, okay, in the bad rainy part of the season, we're over 600,000. So when you take it and average it out, yeah, we had a bunch of times it was 450. We even got down to 400,000 or something or lower, but it's on average. And so they look at it and say, okay, all those 600,000 and 700,000, you got to add that out with the 500,000, and we end up at 540 or 550 on the average for the
Okay,
whole.
so Mike, what's the plan? You had a
The
plan.
plan is that we went for an I&I, and we're getting a 2.1 towards it, and we have a bunch of different things that we're going to go out and clean up manholes by sealing them. We're going to seal other things. We're going to do cameras to find where the breakages are, and we plan to eliminate a lot of the water that's getting in the system. We've also been working with the school, both TC3 and Leslie, but with the school, public schools, Trident system, to eliminate they're getting water into our system, because they have no right to add water than we do. And so we've been working with them, and especially TC3, and they've been very cooperative, and we're making progress for them to take action. But part of the problem was finding out where the problem was, and they're getting closer to knowing where the thing is, and then they'll have to go to the state. So it'll take a while for them to get it fixed. Some of it can be done once they get the go-ahead, because it's a bunch of sump pumps that are hooked into the system. And when we're really wet, they pump a fair amount of water out, but they probably also have breakage in the lines, which take longer. But once we get the go-ahead and they get the money, they should be able to fix that up. We again think we have specifically the elementary school, and we're working with them to determine what they need to do and what's going on. And naturally, they haven't said, oh, we'll spend all this money to figure it out and do it, because then we'll have to pay for it. They have been cooperative, but let's put it this way. They pay for the water, and that's what we pay for the sewer. And the fact that there's another 100,000 or 1,000,000 gallons that we treat coming from them, they're not paying for it. So
Okay, so I hear what you're
they
saying.
don't have a big incentive.
Okay.
So we're working with them to get them to move forward. And so
Okay,
big thing is
Sounds like
we're going to go
Rocco-
through our village, and then we're going to get those people to contribute.
So it sounds like Rocco has his plans. He's kind of holding up, waiting for these infrastructure issues to be worked out. So I mean, I think as far as this committee's concerned, I mean, seems like, and you've gotten a number of grants, et cetera, even though you need more, put some of the village money in. So it seems like things are moving along. Rocco is still committed to the project.
Oh yeah, he's very committed. He wants to
Okay.
do it. That's their next big project. They looked around, and thank you for getting him to come to us, and we talked to him and followed up with him, and he said, hey, they got water and sewer. Hey, yeah.
Okay.
And
Has the village heard anything from Park Grove Realty on the?
No, I was always wondering about that, and I never went after him. But it turns out it took them forever to buy the property. I think they finally just closed on the deal in the last 2 to 5 months. I don't know exactly when, but I finally, it said, the extra land is been sold. And I said, They talked to him 2 years ago and said, we won the bid.
I know, it's New York State. Maybe we need Elon Musk to come in and make the state of New York more efficient.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, I haven't heard from them yet, and I had no anxious to go and talk to them and say, hey, come. Oh, but you got to wait 2 years before we get the go ahead to add any more businesses or houses or buildings or anything onto our sewer line.
So even if they have a smaller project, even if they, is there no capacity even to do?
If you came and asked for 15 houses, I think they'd say no. You know, you come in one house here and two there, maybe at the end of the year, you end up with 8 or 10 or 12, but somebody comes in with a project, no.
Okay,
They're not gonna say, oh, well, we'll let you build 48, because that's what Rocco is a minimum wants to build.
right.
So, and that was why it was so important to get the I&I money. And now we're working with them, but we still haven't made any progress forward to get the money, except that you want it. So,
All right. Well, thank you, Mike. It's so much work that you're doing. It's really amazing. And, you know, every piece of this takes a long time, and we appreciate that you're plugging away on it.
well, you guys have helped me, and good staff. Well, we have very small staff, but good people, and well, love the village. So we're doing the best we can, but it's not quick and it's not easy, because
Ain't quick, ain't cheap. I know.
yeah, I mean, if somebody give us the grant, you gave us the grant money, but then we have to finance it, and
Right.
that's something we're trying to work through now, because you have a limitation how much you can do, and the village has been doing things.
Yeah, I have a quote from a developer in Ithaca. He always talks about the high cost of free money. You get a grant, like, wait, that's not what I thought. So anyway.
Yeah.
All right, any questions for Mike? Any other questions for Mike? Okay. Well, thanks very much for the updates, Mike.
Sure.
Is there anything else under the category of other?
Well, I just sent an email to the committee. There was a great editorial in today's Cortland Standard, so you have that in your inbox.
Okay, great. About housing?
What did Cortland say?
Just kudos to the town and village for the New York Forward.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Good. Thank you, Ray. All right.
I think it doesn't want to open, right, because there's no message with it.
It ended up pasting, I did a screen clip, so it pasted to the middle of the page. If you just scroll down, you'll see it.
Well, you might lose me. I'm gonna try to go out and come back in so I get the zoom of it.
Well, Mike, hold on. I think we're done.
Oh, okay, so okay.
Is
I
there anything
thought he was
else?
gonna put a bunch of things on the screen and go on that, but if it's just the one thing, I can miss it and not goof things up.
All right. Well, check your email. I hope if they're talking about you, Mike, you want to read it.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, send out that New York Forward application to the group.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep,
That'd be
thanks.
great. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Very good.
And Lauren, I know that your minutes will be helpful to the folks who weren't able to be here. So thanks very much for your work.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good